What if I'm behind this? Yes. I'm Bro, I'm interrupting the live broadcast. Okay, where's my target? Okay. Guards. I think we're gonna do fine. No. What are these towers for? Missing wrench. Illegal action. Illegal action will draw unwanted attention. Okay. Okay. Hey, in the GBT, we got cookies over here. uh. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Wow.
That is Victor Novikov, head of Sanguine and ringleader of Iago. Quite the resume.
Oh shit. He's suspecting me, is he?
Low.
I asked her, I was reflecting about love.
Low.
I asked her, I said, what did she think was, one of the biggest revelations that she had had about love? She said that you cannot make a person happy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I thought that was a real deep idea. You can make a person smile, you can make a person feel good, you can make a person laugh, but whether or not a person is happy is deeply and totally and utterly out of your control. I remember
Not true. It's conditional. We're going to talk about this.
I retired. I literally said to Jada, that's it. I retire. I retire from trying to make you happy. I need you to go make yourself happy and just prove to me that it's even possible.
Look at the switch of intensity from the beginning of the video where he's trying to be this casual, like he's walking down the stairs to a golf course. As I'm passing by, I'm just casually recording this video. Just something that popped in my head and I thought I should just post this, to the end where it becomes super intentional, super intense, and it's very purposeful. Broadly, two observations. First observation, I think this video at this time is very important for him because for the longest period of time, all the interviews, all the things that his wife has said on camera have completely, I think, obliterated his image. I think this is an attempt to salvage that image, and that is why the intensity at the end, my hypothesis would be that behind closed doors, this person has had like a million conversations with his wife about making the narrative or changing the narrative from very me-centric to making it all about the family. We're trying to work things out. The narrative should appear as if we fucked shit up for a while, but now things are grounded in family values. We're resolving things, maturity, even though they can never take the narrative back to where it used to be, where people were writing songs about them, or at least in rap songs, the lyrics were like, this is the ideal couple, this is like the mature couple, Will and Jada love. Even though they cannot repair the situation to that degree where it goes back to that, they can still repair it to a degree which is close to that. And I think that has failed. I think he has finally given up. Recently in an interview, again, what you seem to notice is Jada, whenever she speaks, she seems to uplift herself. For her to lift herself, she has to sort of dismiss him. And therefore, I think the strategy now becomes, you stand up for yourself. Let's go back to the claim. You cannot make a person happy. You cannot make a person happy who does not want to be with you. Condition one. Without a doubt, 100% true. You cannot make a person happy who doesn't want to be with you. You cannot make a person happy who wants to be at two places at the same time. For example, they also want to be with you, but they also want to be mentally free at the same time. You know people like that. Well, I want to be in a relationship with you, for example, but I also want to be free. I also want to have options. I also want to try new things, try other things, by which they're kind of sliding in the notion that they probably want to pursue other relationships or whatever. Simply put, you cannot make a person happy who doubts in their mind if they made the right choice. Then that doubt will always act as a buffer between receiving your love totally. The doubt will always act as a buffer. You're always thinking of the but, like, I have this, yeah, this person seems very nice, he always takes care of me, he's very kind, very, very caring, very loving, doesn't cheat, is not a piece of shit. But do I want to be with him? In that situation, that doubt, that but is sort of like a virus. There can be several causes behind this. A person can do this because probably they haven't moved on from somebody, they love somebody else, they have very high idealized notions, completely fictitious notions about who they should be with, which is very consistent with their self-inflated ideas about themselves. So if a person thinks they are somebody far better than they should be with this insanely grand human being, we can list down properly other possible reasons as well. For example, trait impulsivity. High impulsivity means a person who acts without thinking much about the future consequences of their action. Very high desire, but low analytical thinking, low conscious thinking. To be with a person with high impulsivity can be very hard, in the sense that it can be very hard to make them happy, because if you're offering stability, if you're offering a space where we can build peace, satisfaction, and stability, calm, then both of our intentions or motivations at that point are contradictory. One individual is trying to create stability while the other is doing something that is opposite. One person is talking about self-control, saying no to things, to value and
learn from its mistakes, and has instead only compounded them. You ask me to guide those who have proven themselves incapable of following the most basic principles I established. Yes, my lord, because that is who you were. Not a god of judgment, but a teacher, a father, one who understood that growth requires time, requires mistakes, requires forgiveness. He turned away from me, his gaze directed outward, toward the galaxy that lay exposed before him. I could feel his consciousness touching distant stars, distant minds, weighing and measuring the worth of civilizations that had risen and fallen during his long absence. Perhaps, he said finally, there is wisdom in your words, Malkion. Perhaps my judgment has been hasty. Colored by 10,000 years of pain and witnessing the perversion of my work, perhaps there is another way. I felt a sudden shift in the warp, a redirection of the golden energy that had been remaking it, not a cessation, but a change in purpose. Where before it had been a weapon of judgment, now it seemed to be. Searching, examining, evaluating with greater care. I will not return to the golden throne, he continued. That prison has held me for too long, nor will I allow the continuation of the imperial cult, the perversion of science into religion, the transformation of my imperium into a theocratic nightmare. These things end now. But the destruction, the judgment, these I will reconsider. There may be more worth preserving than I first believed. Relief flooded through me, so intense that for a moment I feared I might collapse despite my enhanced physiology. He had listened. The being who could remake reality with a thought had considered the words of his creation and found merit in them. Thank you, my lord, I said simply, knowing that no more elaborate response was necessary or appropriate. Do not thank me yet, Malkion. His voice carried a warning now. What comes next will still be the end of the Imperium as it has existed for millennia. The corrupt will still face judgment. The institutions built on lies will still be dismantled. The false faith created in my name will still be expunged, but it will be done with discernment. With recognition that not all who participated in this system were equally culpable, he turned back to me, his expression now that of a general planning a campaign, focused and determined. And you, my faithful, doubting Malkion, you who had the courage to question a god, you will be my instrument in what comes next, my voice among those who cannot withstand my direct presence, my ambassador to the humanity I once knew and may come to know again. Before I could respond, reality shifted once more. The void of space disappeared, replaced by the ruined grandeur of the imperial palace. We stood in a chamber I recognized, though it had been transformed by his presence. The Senatorum Imperialis, where the High Lords of Terra had once governed the Imperium in his name. The massive table where they had sat was untouched, but the thrones, arranged around it, were empty, their former occupants now judged and found wanting. Here is where we begin the Reformation, he said, moving to the head of the table and gesturing for me to take the seat to his right. The first of many such conversations that will determine the shape of what comes next. You have earned your place in this, Malkion. Your voice will be heard. As I took my seat, I felt the weight of what had just occurred. I, a custodian created to serve without question, had questioned the Emperor himself and lived to tell of it. More than that, I had affected his judgment, had turned his wrath, if not to mercy, then at least to more measured consideration. It was heresy beyond imagining. It was also, perhaps, the most faithful service I had ever rendered. "What comes next will not be easy, Malkion," he said, reading my thoughts with casual ease. "The galaxy has grown used to its corruption, its compromises, its comfortable lies. Removing these will cause pain, resistance, even open rebellion. There will be war unlike any seen since the Horus Heresy. There will be suffering on a scale that would break a lesser being to witness. But there will also be hope. A chance for humanity to become what it was always meant to be, free from the shackles of blind faith, free from the predation of chaos and Xenos alike, free to grow into its psychic potential without the corruption that has always accompanied it." He leaned forward, his eyes now burning with determination rather than judgment. "This is the task before us, Malkion. Not the destruction of humanity, but its rebirth. Are you prepared for what that entails?" I thought of the Imperium I had known, of its cruelties and its kindnesses, of the trillions of lives that would be affected by what was to come, of the institutions, the beliefs, the very foundations of human civilization that would be torn away, leaving countless souls adrift in a galaxy suddenly transformed. I also thought of the potential that had always existed within humanity, the capacity for greatness that the Emperor had recognized and sought to nurture, the future he had envisioned, where mankind would evolve right now, against all odds, still possible. "I am ready, my lord," I said, my voice steady with newfound purpose. "For humanity, for the future, for the Imperium that may yet be." He nodded, satisfied with my answer. And in that moment, as his attention turned to the reshaping of human destiny, I understood the true answer to the question that had started this entire journey. What happens when the Emperor finally wakes? Everything changes. The galaxy trembles, the gods themselves quail in fear, and mankind faces not the end, but a new beginning. Whether that beginning leads to extinction or transcendence remains to be seen. But I, Malkion Vane, last faithful son of the true Emperor, will be there to witness it, and perhaps, in some small way, to guide it. The work began immediately. There was no ceremony, no declaration, no formal announcement of the Emperor's return. Such things were unnecessary when his presence was felt in the mind of every psychically sensitive being in the galaxy. Instead, there was purpose, direction, the reshaping of a civilization that had spent 10,000 years slowly decaying. The Emperor's judgments continued, but with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel rather than the indiscriminate destruction of his initial awakening. The highest echelons of imperial power were the first to face his scrutiny. Those who had abused their authority, who had twisted his vision to serve their own ends, who had profited from the suffering of others, these were removed without mercy. Not erased from existence as before, but punished in ways that fit their crimes, their minds rewritten to understand the full weight of their transgressions. Others, those who had genuinely sought to serve humanity, despite the corruption of the system they inhabited, were spared. Some were even elevated, their minds expanded by his touch, their understanding deepened to comprehend the true scope of what was to come. I watched as he remade Terra, the cradle of humanity transformed once again into a beacon of what mankind could achieve. The endless hive cities, with their billions of inhabitants living in squalor and ignorance, were not destroyed but renovated, open to light and air for the first time in millennia. The factories that had belched poison into the atmosphere for 10,000 years were reconsecrated, their machine spirits replaced with technology that had been kept hidden in the vaults of Mars. And Mars itself, the red planet, had trembled at his return, its population of tech priests divided between those who welcomed the chance to rediscover the true spirit of innovation that had been buried beneath millennia of ritual and those who clung desperately to the religious trappings that had defined the mechanicum for so long. The latter were judged harshly, their hoarded knowledge extracted before their consciousnesses were extinguished. The former were transformed, their augmetic bodies enhanced beyond their wildest dreams, their minds freed from the doctrines that had constrained them. The technologies that had been locked away, deemed too dangerous or too sacred for common use, were now examined with fresh eyes. Some were indeed too volatile, too corrupted by chaos, or the entities of the void to be safely employed. These were destroyed utterly. But others, technologies that could have eased the suffering of trillions, that could have advanced humanity's development by millennia, these were brought forth and distributed. Within months, the Sol system was transformed. Ships that had once taken years to travel between stars now made the journey in weeks. Communication that had relied on the torturous process of astropathic transmission was now instantaneous, across distances that would have been unimaginable before. Worlds that had been dependent on terror for survival now flourished with self-sufficiency. And through it all, I served as his voice, his representative to those who could not endure his direct presence. I traveled to worlds across the galaxy, bearing his message of transformation, witnessing the dismantling of the old order and the painful birth of the new. Some received this message with joy, recognizing in it the fulfillment of prophecies they had never truly understood. Others resisted, clinging to the familiar corruptions of the old Imperium, preferring the devil they knew to the uncertain future the Emperor offered. The Space Marines, those who had survived his initial judgment, were divided. Some chapters embraced the return of their Gene Father, accepting with humility the corrections he offered to the flaws that had developed in their practices over the millennia. Others rebelled, unable to reconcile his new vision with the traditions they had maintained for 10,000 years. These were dealt with, not through destruction but through separation, contained within regions of space where they could maintain their ways without interfering with the broader transformation of humanity. The imperial cult, that vast edifice of faith built around the worship of the emperor as a god, was the most difficult institution to dismantle. For billions upon billions of humans, faith in the god emperor had been the only constant in lives filled with suffering and fear. To suddenly be told that this faith was misplaced, that the being they had worshipped rejected their devotion, was a psychological blow many could not withstand. Here, the emperor showed a mercy I had not expected. Rather than simply erasing the faith that had sustained humanity for millennia, he allowed it to be gradually transformed. The rituals remained, but their meaning changed. The prayers once directed to him now became meditations on human potential. The churches once dedicated to his worship became centers for learning, for community, for the nurturing of the psychic gifts that were becoming more common as his presence in the warp stabilized the immaterium. And throughout all of this, the enemies of mankind were not idle. The forces of chaos, though driven back by his initial awakening, regrouped in the depths of the warp, their gods weakened but not destroyed. The alien empires that had preyed upon human worlds watched with a mixture of fear and opportunity as the Imperium transformed, some seeking alliance with the new order, others preparing for war against a distracted foe. I stood now on the bridge of a ship unlike any that had existed before, a vessel that traveled not through the warp, but through folds in real space itself, technology recovered from the dark age of technology and enhanced by the Emperor's own understanding of the universe. Through the view screen, I could see a world that had once been a battleground between the forces of the Imperium and the Tyranid Hive fleet behemoth. A world that had been stripped of all life, left as a barren rock in the void. The Emperor stood beside me, his form still radiant but now contained, focused, the raw power of his awakening channeled into specific purpose. Around us, a team of former tech priests, now freed from the religious dogma that had constrained their innovation, monitored systems beyond my comprehension. "This world will live again, Malkion," he said, his voice carrying that familiar mixture of authority and vision that had once united humanity. "Watch." He extended his hand toward the view screen, and I felt a surge of power unlike anything I had experienced since his awakening. The barren world seemed to shimmer, as if viewed through heat haze. And then, impossibly, I saw green spreading across its surface, oceans forming where there had been only dust, life returning to a world that had been dead for centuries. This is but the first, he continued, lowering his hand as the transformation stabilized. One world among millions that will be reborn. The Imperium consumed its worlds, Malkion, stripped them of resources, poisoned them with industry, sacrificed them for strategic advantage. That ends now. Humanity will learn to nurture the worlds it inhabits, to live in balance with the universe rather than in constant war against it. I watched in awe as the world before us continued to transform, life spreading across its surface at an accelerated rate, guided by technologies and powers I could barely comprehend. This was not the emperor I had known from the histories, the conqueror who had united Terra through war before launching his crusade to reclaim the stars. This was something both more and less than that being, more in power, in vision, in the scope of his ambition, less in the human fallibility, the compromises, the expediency that had characterized his earlier reign. "What of our enemies, my lord?" I asked. "The forces of chaos have not been destroyed. The Tyranids continue to approach from the intergalactic void. The Necrons awaken on tomb worlds throughout the galaxy. Even as we rebuild, they prepare to tear down what we create." He turned to me, his expression thoughtful, his eyes containing depths that seemed to extend to the beginning of time itself. The greatest enemy humanity has ever faced was itself, Malkion, its own fear, its own ignorance, its own willingness to sacrifice freedom for security, truth for comfort. Address those flaws, and the external enemies become manageable. He gestured again, and the view screen shifted, showing me visions of conflicts throughout the galaxy. Space Marines fighting alongside Eldar against daemons of the warp, human colonists sharing worlds with Tau, each race maintaining its culture while benefiting from cooperation. Even more surprising, Necron lords entering into agreements with human leaders, ancient enemies finding common ground in tow, the face of greater threats. Not all Xenos are enemies to be exterminated, Malkion. Some are potential allies, others are simply different forms of life with their own right to existence. The future I envision includes a humanity that is secure enough in its own identity to coexist with those who are different, rather than fearing and destroying them reflexively. This was heresy by the standards of the Imperium I had known. The xenophobia that had defined human interaction with alien species for millennia was deeply ingrained, reinforced by genuine threats and traumatic encounters. Yet I could not deny the logic of his words. In a galaxy filled with threats from within and without, allies of any species were valuable. And what of the greater threat? I asked. The reason you created the Imperium in the first place, the psychic awakening of humanity, the vulnerability to chaos that comes with it. His expression grew more serious, the light from his form intensifying slightly. That threat remains, and it is graver than ever. Humanity stands at the threshold of its psychic evolution. The number of human psychers born increases with each generation. Without guidance, without protection, they remain vulnerable to the predations of the warp. The entities you know as the Chaos Gods would use them as gateways into real space, as they have done countless times before. He turned fully to me now, his presence filling my consciousness. This is why I cannot simply withdraw, Malkion. This is why the Imperium, even in its corrupted form, was necessary. Humanity needs protection during this vulnerable phase of its development. It needs a shepherd to guide it through the treacherous path of psychic evolution. It needs me. The humility in those last words surprised me. For all his power, for all the changes he had wrought across the galaxy, he recognized the limits of what even he could accomplish. Humanity's path forward was not assured. The threats were real, the dangers immense. Even with his direct intervention, success was not guaranteed. And that, I realized, was the true difference between the being before me and the god that humanity had worshipped for 10,000 years. The god emperor of the imperial cult was infallible, omnipotent, the answer to every question, and the solution to every problem. The actual emperor was something far more complex. A being of immense power and knowledge, yes, but one who recognized the challenges ahead, who understood that the future was not predetermined, who knew that even he could fail if the choices made were wrong. "I will continue to serve, my lord," I said, feeling the weight of that commitment anew. "For as long as I am needed, for as long as humanity requires guidance through what is to come." He placed his hand on my shoulder, the touch sending currents of energy through my body, rejuvenating me in ways I had not known were possible. "Your service has only just begun, Malkion. The transformation of the Imperium, the rebirth of worlds, the reshaping of humanity's relationship with the galaxy. These are but the first steps on a journey that will span millennia. There will be setbacks, there will be failures, there will be moments when all we have built seems on the verge of collapse." His gaze intensified, looking not at me but through me, to futures I could not perceive. "But there will also be triumphs beyond imagining, discoveries that redefine what it means to be human, achievements that transcend the limitations of flesh and time, a humanity freed from the shackles of fear and ignorance, ready at last to claim its rightful place in the cosmos." He turned back to the view screen, to the reborn world now teeming with life where once there had been only death. "That is what happens when the Emperor wakes, Malchion. Not the end of all things, as you once feared, but the beginning of what should always have been." I stood beside him, watching as the future unfolded, one world at a time. And I knew that though the path ahead would be difficult, though the challenges would seem insurmountable at times, the journey had begun. The true Imperium, the one he had always intended, was taking its first faltering steps. What happens when the Emperor wakes? Everything changes. Nothing is certain. The future lies unwritten. But for the first time in 10,000 years, there is genuine hope for mankind. Not the false hope of salvation through faith, not the desperate hope of survival against impossible odds, but the real hope of becoming something more than what we have been, of fulfilling the potential that has always existed within humanity, of creating a future worthy of the sacrifices that have sustained us through our long night. The Emperor is awake, the transformation has begun, and I, Malchion Vane, will bear witness to whatever comes next. The signal dropped 3 registers in the space of a single breath, and I knew before the calibration lenses finished their rotation that this was not turbulence. I had served aboard the Pennants of St. Drusus for 11 years. I had logged over 4,000 fluctuation events across 9 sanctioned translations. I understood the texture of turbulence the way a mason understands stone, through sustained and practiced contact, through repetition that became instinct. Turbulence scattered, turbulence sheared across frequency bands in patterns that were violent but ultimately legible. What I registered in the choir chamber on the 312th day of our passage through the rift shadow lanes was not scattering, it was subsidence. The Astronomican's echo did not weaken, it did not fracture or blur, it sank. The entire signal body descended as though the medium carrying it had deepened without warning, the way a river might suddenly lose its bed and spill into a cavern system no surveyor had mapped. I held the focus array steady with both hands, my fingertips slick against the brass contact plates. The choir behind me maintained their chant. 17 voices locked into the harmonic structure of the litany of safe passage, their combined psychic emission forming a lattice I could feel vibrating through the base of my skull. They had not noticed. Their perception operated at sanctioned depth, and sanctioned depth was precisely calibrated to register the warp's navigable surface, the layer where the Emperor's light cut its corridor through madness. I operated one layer lower. That was my function. A choir savant does not merely sing with the others, he monitors the medium itself, the consistency of the immaterial fluid through which the Astronomican's signal propagates. It is the difference between reading the words on a page and measuring the paper's thickness, its moisture content, the pressure of the ink. I was a quality assessor of the impossible. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica had invested decades of surgical augmentation and psycho-doctrinal conditioning to produce my capacity for this precise work. On this day, that capacity brought me to the edge of something no catechism had prepared me for. The Lord Captain's order had come through the encrypted Vox channel reserved for priority navigation matters. His voice carried the particular flatness of a man accustomed to issuing commands he did not fully understand, but trusted implicitly in the hierarchy that demanded them. We had been in translation for over 300 standard days. The Cicatrix Maledictum's shadow lanes were not true passages through the Great Rift. They were scar channels, regions where the rift's intensity thinned enough for Geller-equipped vessels to endure passage without immediate dissolution. Thin did not mean safe. It meant survivable for a statistically meaningful percentage of attempts. The Lord Captain wanted reassurance that the Astronomican still burned true beyond the ambient interference, and he wanted it confirmed through direct deep listening verification. Deep listening was a right reserved for emergency distress conditions. It required the choir savant to lower perceptual engagement below the navigable current, to push awareness beneath the working depth of standard warp transit and taste the medium's substrate directly. The procedure existed because in rare circumstances, the Astronomican's signal could be locally occluded by dense warp phenomena while still persisting at deeper propagation layers. Confirming its presence there meant confirming the ship had not drifted beyond the Emperor's reach. The rite was sanctioned. It was documented in 17 volumes of procedural liturgy. It required authorization from the vessel's ranking officer and countersignature from the senior astropathic delegate. Both had been provided. I held the parchment in my hand, the Lord Captain's seal pressed in dark red wax beside the delegate's in silver. Everything was authorized. Everything was correct. I initiated the descent. The choir's voices provided the structural lattice, their combined harmonic acting as a tether while I extended my perception downward through the warp's active layer. The sensation is difficult to articulate for those who have not experienced psychic immersion. The warp's navigable surface feels like weather experienced from inside. Emotional pressure systems, currents of raw sentiment, tidal surges of hunger and fury that the Geller field translates into manageable static. Below that surface, the texture changes. The emotional noise dampens. The predatory intelligences that swarm the upper layers thin out, not because they choose to avoid the depth, but because their substance cannot maintain coherence there. It is like watching bonfire ash rise from flame. At a certain altitude, the heat is gone and the ash simply disperses. I passed through the thinning layer and found myself in a stratum I had touched only twice before in 11 years, both times during genuine distress events when the Astronomicon had been locally screened by warp storms. Both times I had found the Emperor's signal burning steady beneath the interference, a golden thread running through deep silt, and I had pulled back with the relief of a man finding solid ground after wading through floodwater. This time, the golden thread was there. The Astronomicon burned true, exactly as expected. I could have stopped. The rights requirements were fulfilled, signal integrity confirmed. I should have begun the ascent protocol immediately. But beneath the signal, beneath the layer where even the Astronomicon's light became a thin, attenuated wire of directed will, I felt something else. Stillness. Not the stillness of absence, not the dead calm that follows a storm's passage. This stillness had mass. It had pressure. It sat beneath the navigable warp the way bedrock sits beneath topsoil, except bedrock is passive, inert, geological. This pressure was patient. That is the word my mind supplied, and I have never been able to replace it with anything more precise. Patient. The stillness waited with the absolute composure of something that had never needed to act. I completed the ascent. I disengaged the focus array. I recorded the Astronomicon's signal strength, propagation clarity, and ambient interference index in the choir's operational log. I signed the entry with my designator and sealed it with the astropathic cipherglyph. I did not record the stillness. I did not record the pressure. I told myself it was residual sensation, a psychic afterimage produced by extended immersion below safe operating depth. I told myself the mind creates phantoms when it operates beyond its designed parameters, just as the eye produces false light when pressed. I told myself this was documented, expected, irrelevant. For 23 minutes, I believed what I told myself. Then the choir completed their post-rite purification chant and filed from the chamber, and I was alone with the monitoring equipment and the low vibration of the ship's Gellerfield generators cycling through the deck plating. And in that quiet, I felt it again. Not through psychic perception, not through the focus lenses or the harmonic lattice. I felt it the way one feels the presence of deep water when standing on a pier at night, not seeing, not hearing, but knowing that beneath the surface, the depth continues far beyond anything the darkness reveals. The fracture had already occurred. I simply had not yet agreed to name it. My life until that point had been structured around certainties I did not question, because questioning them served no functional purpose and would have introduced instability into a system that demanded absolute precision. The warp was chaos. This was the first and final truth of the Scholastia Psychana, drilled into every sanctioned psyker from the moment their abilities manifested and the black ships came to collect them. The immaterium was the reflection of mortal emotion, a boiling, screaming mirror of every fear and desire and hateful impulse that sentient minds projected into the fabric of unreality. Its denizens, the creatures the ignorant called daemons, were concentrations of that reflected emotion, predatory by nature, drawn to psychic resonance the way scavengers are drawn to carrion. Against this chaos stood two pillars: the Emperor's will, manifested as the Astronomicon, and the institutions of mankind that channeled, contained, and directed that will through the apparatus of faith and technology. The Gellerfield was a prayer made into physics. The navigator's third eye was a gene-wrought miracle that perceived the Emperor's light across impossible distance. The astropathic choir was a weapon of coordinated psychic discipline, turning the warp's own nature against itself by imposing harmonic order on emotional anarchy. Every element of my existence reinforced this framework. Morning began with the litany of sanctioned perception, a 7-minute recitation that established the parameters of acceptable warp engagement. My psychic faculties were activated, calibrated, and bounded within doctrinally approved limits before I was permitted to approach the choir chamber. The litany named every permissible sensation. It catalogued every authorized depth. It described, in meticulous detail, the texture of the warp's navigable surface so that any deviation from expected conditions would register immediately as anomaly. I had recited it 11,000 times. I performed my duties within this architecture of certainty, and for 11 years it held. The warp screamed, and I logged the screaming. Daemons battered the Geller field, and I measured the impact vectors and filed reports that contributed to the Astropathic Intelligence Archive's threat assessment matrices. Warp surges distorted local reality, and I calibrated compensation protocols. The choir sang, the navigator steered, the field held, and the penance of St. Drusus continued its long passage through corridors of managed insanity. The deep warp appeared in the choir manuals exactly once, a footnote in the appendix of the Codex Immaterialis, Volume 9, subsection 34, paragraph 7. It described a theoretical stratum beneath the warp's active surface, a substrate hypothesized by early Scholastia scholars as a possible explanation for certain anomalous signal loss events during the Great Crusade era. The footnote concluded with a single sentence. Subsequent investigation has rendered this hypothesis without operational relevance. I had read that footnote during my training. I had not thought about it in 9 years. Now I could not stop thinking about it. In the days following the deep listening rite, I maintained my duties with the precision expected of my station. I logged fluctuation events. I calibrated the choir's harmonic output. I attended the twice-daily signal integrity briefings with the senior delegate, Astropath Corvinus, who had served aboard black ships longer than I had been alive and whose milky, augmetic-laced eyes saw nothing of the material world, but perceived the warp's currents with a fidelity I had always envied. Corvinus recited doctrine like breathing. Every observation he made was framed within the Imperium's cosmological architecture. Warp turbulence was sin made manifest. Signal loss was the faithful being tested. Demonic contact was the enemy's desperation, proof of their impotence before the Emperor's will. I listened. I agreed. I countersigned his reports. I said nothing about what I had felt beneath the sanctioned layer. Self-censorship was not difficult. The apparatus of compliance is designed to make silence easier than speech. Every report I filed passed through 3 doctrinal review filters before entering the ship's permanent archive. Anomalous language, meaning any terminology not drawn from the approved lexicon of warp phenomena, would trigger automatic flagging and summons for clarification. The system did not merely discourage deviation, it made the mechanical act of deviating more labor-intensive than conformity. To describe what I had perceived would require inventing terminology. Invented terminology would require justification. Justification would require theological review. Theological review would require convening an advisory panel that included the ship's confessor, the inquisitorial attaché, and the senior astropathic delegate. I chose to write, "Signal substrate stable, no actionable anomaly," and moved on with my shift. The cost was small. A single phrase omitted, a single truth withheld. I told myself it was pragmatism, that operational cohesion demanded clean data, that introducing subjective sensation into formal logs would contaminate the record. These were not lies. They were reasons that happened to align perfectly with my desire to avoid confronting what I had felt. On the 319th day, during a scheduled monitoring cycle, I lowered my perception again. I did not intend to. The monitoring cycle required surface depth engagement only, a routine sweep of the warp's active layer to confirm Geller field stability and log ambient psychic pressure. The procedure was as familiar as breathing. I had performed it thousands of times. My hands rested on the contact plates. My awareness spread across the navigable surface in a calibrated fan, and I registered the expected conditions. Emotional turbulence in the moderate range. Predatory signatures at standard density. Astronomican echo within acceptable parameters. Then, as I completed the sweep's terminal arc, my perception dipped. Not by choice, not by mechanical failure. It was as though the surface itself had thinned momentarily, like ice that flexes under distributed weight, and my awareness slipped through a fraction deeper than intended. The stillness was there. It had not moved. It had not changed. It waited with the same incomprehensible patience I had felt during the deep listening rite, and in the half-second of contact before I pulled my awareness back to sanctioned depth, I registered a detail I had missed before. The stillness was not uniform. It had texture. Not the chaotic emotional texture of the warp's surface, but something geometric, compressed. As if immense forces had been organized into stable configurations so old that the concept of age became meaningless in describing them. I completed the monitoring cycle. I filed the report. Surface readings only, no anomaly. My hands were shaking when I removed them from the contact plates. I pressed them flat against my thighs and held them there until the tremor passed, counting the seconds by the rhythm of the ship's plasma conduit cycling 3 decks below. The next morning, Navigator Primus Augustine Vale collapsed on the observation deck. I was not present. I learned of it through the encrypted priority channel 40 minutes after it occurred, when Senior Delegate Corvinus summoned me to the Astropathic Operations Center for an emergency briefing. The Operations Center was a narrow chamber buried in the ship's core, its walls lined with psychoreactive panels that registered ambient warp conditions through color shifts. When I arrived, the panels pulsed a deep, unsettled amber. Corvinus stood at the central lectern, his staff gripped in both hands, his expression unreadable behind augmetic lenses and the pale scar tissue of decades of soul binding. Navigator Vielle was dead. He had been performing routine warp observation, a task he had executed without incident for the better part of 2 centuries, and had suffered what the ship's senior chirurgeon classified as acute neurological failure. His third eye, the warp-perceiving organ unique to the Navis Nobilite, had ceased function 7 seconds before his biological death. The chirurgeon's preliminary report attributed the failure to prolonged exposure to the cicatrix maledictum's ambient interference. What the report did not include, because it was transmitted verbally in the operations center and never committed to written record, was the navigator's final utterance. The deck officer who had been present described it to Corvinus, and Corvinus relayed it to me with the careful tonelessness of a man handling volatile material. Navigator Vale had turned from the observation aperture, his third eye already clouding, and had spoken 4 words before his legs failed. 4 words, repeated by the deck officer with obvious reluctance and the specific emphasis of someone who wants to be clear that he is merely reporting, not interpreting. Ceased function 7 seconds before his biological death. The chirurgeon's preliminary report attributed the failure to prolonged exposure to the cicatrix maledictum's ambient interference. What the report did not include, because it was transmitted verbally in the operations center and never committed to written record, was the navigator's final utterance. The deck officer who had been present described it to Corvinus, and Corvinus relayed it to me with the careful tonelessness of a man handling volatile material. Navigator Vale had turned from the observation aperture, his third eye already clouding, and had spoken 4 words before his legs failed. 4 words, repeated by the deck officer with obvious reluctance and the specific emphasis of someone who wants to be clear that he is merely reporting, not interpreting. Shadow beneath the light. Corvinus told me this. Then he told me to forget it. His exact words were, "The navigator's terminal vocalization was symptomatic of neurological collapse and holds no interpretive value. You will affirm this if questioned." I affirmed it. The inquisitorial attaché arrived within the hour. His name was Davo. He held no visible rank insignia and wore the plain gray coat of a minor administratum functionary, but every officer aboard the Penance knew what he was, because every black ship carried one, and their presence was an open secret maintained through the polite fiction of bureaucratic anonymity. Darvo sealed the observation deck, collected the chirurgeon's report, interviewed the deck officer, and issued a standing instruction that any further discussion of Navigator Vale's death would be limited to the official medical finding. I was summoned to Darvo's quarters the following morning. The room was small, Spartan, and dominated by a writing desk covered in data slates. He offered me recaf. I declined. He asked me to confirm that no anomalous warp signatures had been recorded during the period surrounding Navigator Vale's collapse. I confirmed this because it was technically true. My monitoring equipment had registered nothing abnormal at sanctioned depth. He asked me to sign a formal attestation to that effect. A single sheet of parchment, pre-printed with standardized language declaring that the astropathic choir's instruments had detected no evidence of demonic activity, warp breach, or anomalous psychic phenomena in connection with the incident. I signed it. My stylus moved across the parchment with the steady pressure of practiced compliance, and as the ink dried, I understood that I had done something more consequential than omitting a detail from a monitoring log. I had formally bound my name and authority to a narrative I knew to be incomplete. The navigator had not died from prolonged exposure to the rift. He had seen something from below. His third eye had not burned out from excessive input. It had been occluded, covered, closed from beneath, exactly as he had said, by something rising upward from a depth the official record did not acknowledge. I knew this because I had touched that depth myself. I knew this because the stillness I had felt was precisely the kind of phenomenon that could interact with a navigator's warp site without leaving any signature detectable by standard instruments. It was not demonic. It was not chaotic. It did not register on any scale the Imperium possessed for measuring warp threat, because every scale the Imperium possessed was calibrated for the warp's surface. This was not surface. And I had just signed a document declaring it did not exist. The days that followed compressed into a routine that felt increasingly like performance. I recited the litany of sanctioned perception each morning and heard the words as sounds rather than meaning. I calibrated the choir's harmonic output and monitored the navigable surface and filed reports that described a warp I no longer believed was the whole of what surrounded us. The choir sang. The replacement navigator, a younger woman of the same noble house, took her position at the observation aperture with the rigid posture of someone determined to prove that the post was not cursed. The Geller field cycled steadily. The penance of St. Drusus continued its passage through the Rift Shadow Lane. On the 329th day, the warp attacked. The assault came without the gradual pressure build that typically preceded demonic incursion. One moment, the ambient readings held within normal parameters. The next, the psycho-reactive panels in the operations center flared a violent, saturated crimson that I had seen only twice in my career, and the ship's hull began to ring. The sound was not metallic. It was organic. A keening that resonated through the superstructure as though the vessel itself had become a tuning fork struck by something vast. The Geller field's output spiked as it compensated for external pressure. Alarm klaxons triggered across every deck. The choir, drilled for this eventuality since their earliest training, immediately shifted from standard harmonic to combat configuration, their voices locking into the aggressive, discordant pattern designed to disrupt daemonic coherence. I took my position at the focus array and extended perception to the sanctioned combat depth, which permitted wider lateral awareness at the cost of reduced vertical sensitivity. The surface of the warp outside the Geller field's boundary was alive with predatory forms. I could feel them pressing against the barrier, dozens of semi-coherent entities drawn by the ship's psychic signature, their hunger a palpable weight against my extended senses. Standard threat, manageable threat. The field held. The choir's combat harmonic shattered the weaker manifestations before they could consolidate. Then I felt it again. Not the entities, not the screaming surface chaos. Below, the stillness. But this time it was not merely present. It was active. Active is not quite right. It did not move the way the surface entities moved, with direction and hunger and purpose. It shifted the way a geological fault shifts, not because it intends to, but because accumulated pressure reaches a threshold that physics will not deny. Something in the deep adjusted, and the effect on the surface was immediate. The demonic entities stopped pressing against the Geller field. They stopped because they were no longer there. I watched through extended perception as the predatory forms that had been battering the ship's barrier were pulled downward, not repelled, not destroyed, pulled, as if the surface they occupied had suddenly developed a gradient that their substance could not resist. They unraveled as they descended, their coherence shredding like fabric caught in machinery, their emotional signatures dissipating into something I could not follow because it passed below my sanctioned perception range. The Geller field flickered, not from breach, not from impact, but from resonance interference. The field was calibrated to counter pressure from the warp's active layer. The pull from below created a harmonic mismatch that the field's emitters had not been designed to compensate for. For 3 seconds, the field's output oscillated wildly, and I felt the raw warp brush against the ship's hull without mediation. Then the oscillation corrected. The field stabilized, the surface entities were gone, pulled into the depth. The ambient readings dropped to levels I had never seen during a mid-rift translation, cleaner than real space proximity readings. As though the warp around us had been scoured, the choir fell silent by reflex. 17 voices stopped simultaneously, not because they had received an order, but because the combat harmonic had nothing left to combat. I could feel their confusion through the residual lattice, a collective dissonance that tasted of copper and cold stone. The all clear sounded 9 minutes later. The Lord Captain's voice on the shipwide vox carried the measured satisfaction of a commander whose vessel had weathered a storm. He commended the crew. He praised the Emperor's protection. He instructed all departments to file post-engagement reports within the standard 4-hour window. I filed mine. Demonic assault of moderate intensity, duration 8 minutes, terminated by Geller field stabilization and choir combat harmonic. No breach, no casualties, no anomalies. The ship survived unscathed. Too unscathed. That phrase entered my mind and would not leave. Warp engagements of that intensity always left marks. Hull stress indicators should have shown microfractures in the field-adjacent plating. Psychic residue should have contaminated the outer compartments, requiring purification cycles. At least 1 or 2 of the weaker choir members should have reported symptomatic backlash, nosebleeds and migraines, and minor perceptual disturbances that were the normal cost of combat harmonic deployment. Nothing. Clean bulkheads, clean instruments, clean minds, as if the attack had never progressed far enough to leave evidence, because something else had intervened before the damage could accumulate. I said nothing. But that night, in the narrow cot of my quarters with the lights extinguished and the deck plating humming its endless monotone beneath me, I made a decision that I understood even then was irreversible. I would lower my perception during the next monitoring cycle, deliberately, past the sanctioned boundary, and I would hold it there long enough to properly observe what existed below. This was not curiosity. Curiosity implies a detached, intellectual interest in discovery. What I felt was the grinding, unavoidable pressure of a man who has seen water rising beneath a sealed door and knows that not looking will not stop the flooding. The depth existed. It interacted with the warp's surface in ways that affected my ship, my choir, and my operational reality. Ignoring it was not caution. It was the specific kind of ignorance that gets people killed while they congratulate themselves on following procedure. I told myself this. I told myself it was operational necessity. It was also transgression, and I knew it. The next scheduled monitoring cycle fell on the 331st day. I prepared with meticulous care, arriving at the choir chamber an hour before the cycle began, to inspect the focus array personally. The chamber was empty at that hour, the choir not yet assembled for their pre-cycle devotions. The room was hexagonal, 15 meters across, with a vaulted ceiling that disappeared into shadow above the range of the bioluminescent strips embedded in the walls. The focus array dominated the center, a complex arrangement of psycho-conductive crystals mounted in a brass armature that could be adjusted to direct and concentrate a savant's perception like a lens focuses light. Around the array, 17 kneeling stations were arranged in a circle, each equipped with harmonic resonance plates that amplified the individual choir members' output into the collective lattice. I adjusted the focus array's vertical axis by 2 degrees, a small change. It shifted the array's optimal perception range fractionally lower, enough to extend my awareness without requiring conscious effort that might register as anomalous to the choir members monitoring the lattice's stability. It was the kind of technical modification that fell within my authority as choir savant, a calibration adjustment that required no countersignature and generated no automatic log entry. The choir assembled. The pre-cycle devotions were recited. The monitoring cycle began. I descended. The navigable surface parted around my awareness with its familiar texture of screaming emotion and predatory hunger, and I sank below it as smoothly as a weighted line sinks through water. The transition zone between the surface and the deeper strata felt different this time, thinner, as though repeated contact had worn the boundary the way a path wears through undergrowth. I passed through the thinning layer where demonic coherence failed and into the quiet below. A fluctuation in the monitoring cycle's rhythm compressed my decision window. The choir's harmonic shifted as one of the junior members adjusted her resonance plate, and the resulting ripple through the lattice created a momentary widening of my perceptual aperture. I had seconds. If I pulled back, the aperture would close, and the cycle would continue normally. If I pushed deeper, I would be operating beyond any recoverable parameter. I pushed. The deep warp opened beneath me like a held breath finally released. It was not empty. It was not dark, because darkness is a condition of light's absence, and light was not a relevant concept at this depth. It was not silent, because silence is defined by the potential for sound, and the dimension I now perceived operated in registers that made the concept of vibration irrelevant. What it was, with a clarity that burned itself into my comprehension like a brand into flesh, was structured. Immense geometric pressures arranged in configurations so old that the warped screaming surface, its gods and daemons, and 10,000-year wars, registered as nothing more than foam on the surface of an ocean whose floor I could not perceive. The structures were not static. They held tension, the way a suspension bridge holds tension. Every element under load, every force balanced against its opposite, in a state of equilibrium that predated the existence of the species whose emotions had formed the turbulent surface above. And the structures, screaming surface, its gods and daemons, and 10,000-year wars, registered as nothing more than foam on the surface of an ocean whose floor I could not perceive. The structures were not static. They held tension, the way a suspension bridge holds tension. Every element under load, every force balanced against its opposite, in a state of equilibrium that predated the existence of the species whose emotions had formed the turbulent surface above. And the structures were indifferent. I do not mean they chose indifference. I do not mean they had decided that the warped surface phenomena, or the material universe beyond it, were unworthy of attention. I mean that the concept of attention did not apply. The deep warp did not notice the ruinous powers for the same reason the ocean floor does not notice the wind. The scale differential was absolute. The screaming gods were weather. The Astronomicon was a candle. And below everything that humanity had ever feared, fought, worshipped, or died screaming about in the immaterium, this vast and patient architecture continued its incomprehensible existence in total structural silence. The Emperor's light did not reach it, not because it was blocked, not because it was consumed. The light simply did not apply. It was a signal broadcast in a medium that this depth did not share. The Astronomicon burned in the warp's active layer like a torch burns in air, and the deep warp existed in a substrate where fire had no meaning. I remained in contact for 11 seconds. It might have been 11 years. Time behaved differently there. Not distorted, as the warp's surface distorts time through emotional interference. Irrelevant. Time was a property of systems that changed, and the deep warp showed no evidence of change on any scale I could perceive. The structures I felt had achieved a state of equilibrium that made the concept of duration meaningless. They did not persist through time. They existed in a condition where time was not a relevant dimension. I pulled back. The ascent felt like tearing free of gravity, not because the depth resisted, but because my own perception had begun to acclimate to its pressure, and returning to the shallow, screaming chaos of the navigable warp felt like emerging from deep water into a windstorm. The contrast was physically painful. I gasped aloud, and the nearest choir member turned toward me with a frown of concern that I waved away with a gesture I hoped appeared controlled. My hands were shaking again. This time the tremor did not stop when I pressed them against my thighs. It migrated into my forearms, then my shoulders, then settled into a low, persistent vibration in the muscles of my jaw that made my teeth click together at irregular intervals. A physical response to psychic contact that exceeded my body's designed tolerance. I completed the monitoring cycle. I filed the report. Surface readings only. No anomaly. In my quarters afterward, I sat on the edge of my cot and stared at the bare metal wall and tried to reconcile what I had perceived with the doctrinal framework that had given my life its shape and purpose. The warp was chaos. The warp was a reflection of mortal emotion. The warp's dangers were reflections of humanity's sins, and they could be combated through purity, faith, and the Emperor's divine will. The deep warp was none of these things. It was chaos. It was structured beyond any architecture the Imperium had ever conceived. It was not a reflection of anything human, because it had existed before humanity and would exist after humanity with the same incomprehensible patience it displayed now. It was not dangerous in any way the Imperium's defenses were designed to address, because it was not hostile. Hostility requires engagement. The deep warp was disengaged from everything appearance, irrelevant. Opposite, in a state of equilibrium that predated the existence of the species. The structures were not static, they in registers that made the concept of vibration irrelevant. What it was ripple through the lattice, created log entry. The choir assembled.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, nice. Ooh, different angles. Mage owos. What? Oh yeah, let's go. Very good. Oh man.
What is this man selling? Hello, Bang. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, my friend. What is it? Grupo. Grupo. Okay. Can I see it? Melihat? Boleh. Okay, thank you, Bang. I've asked the man if I can have a look at what it is. Oh, wow. Oh, he used the thing. That's actually insane. Damn. Okay.
feel the most pleasurable pain. Wow, so no.
Ooh, that's actually insane. Oh man, I cannot find the tutorial, bro. Well, I guess it's gonna be like this someday. Oh my gosh, it's Rika! Hello, hello. How have you been? Hope everything's been going well. It's like morning in your place, right? Probably, I don't know. Maybe afternoon. Yeah, that might be a bit. Good morning or good afternoon to you, though. Hope your day goes well. Do your best today. Yes, I mean, what I'm doing is, yeah, trying my best at the very least. And I don't know if I messed up or something, but you know what? Let's just make one more frame, and I think we are done for today. So yeah, like yeah, hopefully you have a good day. Let's go. Thank you for stopping by. What's your plan today, by the way? Are you have like work or something? I think since it's like good morning for you, maybe you might be getting up for work or something. Wait, what did I do in there? That was supposed to be a piece of hair. Yep. Okay, I remove this. And okay, I need to animate the background too. I just realized that. I'm currently on a pause from work because the studios I work with are having a number of hurdles. Oh, so is it like a holiday for you? Is that the case? I think it is a good day, or like something like working on your own animation. Maybe that's like a good day to start with, or anything that you like to do. Yeah, nothing better than that. Let's go. Not really. I'm always working on content. Yeah, work stuff unavailable, so yeah, content is something you can do all day every day, right? Mhm. Man, I'm also like working for content only, but man, I think I should change something. Like I think I should be animating for like for the sake of setting up my portfolio or stuff, rather than like make it good enough so that it's like presentable to people, and hopefully I got a good feedback for it. Yeah, I think that's like one of the main reasons it's not going well. Okay, I think I should like change those things on top. Yeah, I'm currently working on a video and 2 songs. Yes, that would be good. Wait, what? On a video and 2 songs? Is it like commissions for you? Is it like some kind of content that you're gonna be releasing later on? Wait, give me a few minutes. I'm on a call. Okay, let's continue with our work now. Let's go.
Pre-cycle devotions were recited. The monitoring cycle began. I descended. The navigable surface parted around my awareness with its familiar texture of screaming emotion and predatory hunger, and I sank below it as smoothly as a weighted line sinks through water. The transition zone between the surface and the deeper strata felt different this time, thinner, as though repeated contact had worn the boundary the way a path wears through undergrowth. I passed through the thinning layer where demonic coherence failed and into the quiet below. A fluctuation in the monitoring cycle's rhythm compressed my decision window. The choir's harmonic shifted as one of the junior members adjusted her resonance plate, and the resulting ripple through the lattice created a momentary widening of my perceptual aperture. I had seconds. If I pulled back, the aperture would close, and the cycle would continue normally. If I
Welcome back, Thank you for welcoming me back, Rika. Thank you, thank you. Oh, by the way, you had like your own server, right? In this one Discord server where you supposedly locked it so that you can open it in the future. I mean, there was like some announcement, was it? I don't do video or music related commissions, by the way. I just like making videos and sing. Oh, I see. Wait, so like making videos and sing. It's like do you animate something and like is it like a cover of yourself or just a simple make random videos and sing to it kind of thing? Have you ever made one? I am curious as to how they look like. If you have any, do let me know. I want to see like if you're okay with sharing those stuff, you know. Which one? The green one, the tavern one, the one where you made like a announcement, right? That you'll be opening the server soon or something like that. Currently, it's like you cannot send messages or something. I don't know. Was it open? Because I feel like it opened like quite a while ago. Oh yeah. Okay. It was open. Okay, now I remember. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, you know what? Never mind. I'm not sure what you're talking about with the server. Yeah. Like it's about like one server. You know what? At this point, you don't mind. You know, it's completely fine. Now, okay. So your chat area is like way bottom of the channels. Oh, that reminds me, I have to start working on this. Yeah. Yep, definitely. That fated day is coming nearby. Yeah, you've been typing it. Yeah. I just realized that I even typed in it once. I remember that. Okay. The music is just me singing for fun mostly. I'm not sure. I mentioned if you're keeping up with it, once a video server will be open. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I forgot about it. I was like in the impression that it's still locked or something, but yeah, apparently I was wrong. So it's completely fine. What the hell is that mosquito? It's like 1 centimeter big. I can guarantee that's the longest one that I've ever seen. I mean, the biggest one. What the hell? I have to kill it immediately. Otherwise, my night's gonna be hell if that thing exists with me in this room. It was closed before because I hadn't debuted. Yeah, exactly. The videos are the videos are separate from the music. Ooh. Just me singing for fun mostly. Oh, that reminds me. Wait, you haven't done a karaoke, right? Did you? Wait, what is your schedule? Oh, shoot. No way. Man, I did have one last week. Yeah. Man, I wasn't there. What was I even doing? Oh yeah, I had work like man. What an unfortunate timing for me. I am not able to tune into your stream just to hear you sing. Damn. I gotta check on the VODs then. But it's completely fine. I will check onto the VODs. Yeah, let's go. Oh yeah, I also have to like make corrections on that feedback that you gave. Yeah, I have to also work on it later. But right now, let me try to complete this thing over here. Let's see how this goes. It looks, wait, there's a disconnect over here. Man, these small things, it's like ruins everything. Anything else that's a little odd? Yeah, okay, this piece of hair over here, it's like a little, we'll go like this. Man, it sometimes get really difficult, like trying to comprehend this thing over here, you know, when especially when you have like your onion settings on and then you see this cluster over here, like what's supposed to be next. Oh yeah, okay, I drew that's the next frame. Previous frame did not exist. Previous frame did not have that bunch of hair. How will it exist in the in-between frame then? In this, I think I have to use my own imagination, right? That's how animators work upon, I suppose. I don't know. I have no methods, ideas, or pipelines to follow in order to make it as good as possible. Okay, that bunch of hair goes in a weird way inside, and then I think it branches out. Yep, it branches out. Thick piece of hair over here, and then it branches into two hair over here. Okay, I guess that's how you're supposed to work. I have to step away for a moment. It's completely fine. Take your time. Let me try to solve this dilemma over here. How am I supposed to like introduce a new bunch of hair over here? Okay, the hair goes like this, so that means, yeah, I think it opens up like this. Let's assume it opens up like this. Okay, this piece of hair goes like this. Okay, I think maybe this. Maybe this makes sense. Yeah, I think it makes sense. Yes, yes, yes. It is making sense. Yay! Thank you. Wait. The Whispering Valley. What is this? GOG.com. Oh, I have no idea about GOG. I only claim free games from Epic Games and Steam. That's it. Wait, that reminds me. What are the new games in Epic Games though? Let me check and see. Wait, how long have I been streaming right now? 1 minute 50. Okay. This time I will follow utmost discipline and sleep on time today. Hopefully. Wait, that reminds me. I have to boil my eggs. The Stone of Madness, okay. And for tomorrow also I need to boil eggs. Yeah. I gotta do that. And for today also. Okay, 4 eggs. I'm gonna cook some 4 eggs today. Let's go. I'll be right back in a few minutes. Man, I need to make a BRB screen. Oh, by the way, Rika, you raided that person. She had an entire video for that raid, which is like insane, man. Damn. That's a very creative way to have a raid message, not gonna lie. That inspired me to make something about it. I wanna do something about it. But for now, I think I have to first be good at it, you know. I wanna be a little bit decent, like meet up to my own expectation standard that I have set, and after that I'll be like start working on the stream thingy. Yeah, my layouts and everything. I'll be also like updating my OC that time, like create new OC animation. I mean, I have a few ideas, but how am I gonna implement? I have to make a plan regarding it. Like, yeah, I think I need to first learn this thing. What is this thing called? What is I even using? Tools, WebSocket server settings. Okay, there's nothing over here. What is that? What is the thing called? Sammy, yeah, Sammy. Exactly. I need to learn how to use that. Sammy. Okay. And also, how will my OC? What will be the setting of my OC when I make one? Like, while drawing, what will be the look on her face? What will be her pose during that time? Stepping in.
pushed deeper, I
Okay, let's go.
beyond any recoverable parameter. I pushed. The deep warp opened beneath me like a held breath finally released. It was not empty. It was not dark, because darkness is a condition of light's absence, and light was not a relevant concept at this depth. It was not silent, because silence is defined by the potential for sound, and the dimension I now perceived operated in registers that made the concept of vibration irrelevant. What it was, with a clarity that burned itself into my comprehension like a brand into flesh, was structured. Immense geometric pressures, arranged in configurations so old that the warp's screaming surface, its gods and daemons, and 10,000-year wars, registered as nothing more than foam on the surface of an ocean whose floor I could not perceive. The structures were not static. They held tension, the way a suspension bridge holds tension. Every element under load, every force balanced against its opposite, in a state of equilibrium that predated the existence of the species whose emotions had formed the turbulent surface above. And the structures were indifferent. I do not mean they chose indifference. I do not mean holds tension. Every element under load, every force balanced against its opposite, in a state of equilibrium that predated the existence of the species whose emotions had formed the turbulent surface above. And the structures were indifferent. I do not mean they chose indifference. I do not mean they had decided that the warp's surface phenomena, or the material universe beyond it, were unworthy of attention. I mean that the concept of attention did not apply. The deep warp did not notice the ruinous powers for the same reason the ocean floor does not notice the wind. The scale differential was absolute. The screaming gods were weather. The Astronomicon was a candle, and below everything that humanity had ever feared, fought, worshipped, or died screaming about in the immaterium, this vast and patient architecture continued its incomprehensible existence in total structural silence. The Emperor's light did not reach it, not because it was blocked, not because it was consumed. The light simply did not apply. It was a signal broadcast in a medium that this depth did not share. The Astronomicon burned in the warp's active layer like a torch burns in air, and the deep warp existed in a substrate where fire had no meaning. I remained in contact for 11 seconds. It might have been 11 years. Time behaved differently there. Not distorted, as the warp's surface distorts time through emotional interference. Irrelevant. Time was a property of systems that changed, and the deep warp showed no evidence of change on any scale I could perceive. The structures I felt had achieved a state of equilibrium that made the concept of duration meaningless. They did not persist through time. They existed in a condition where time was not a relevant dimension. I pulled back. The ascent felt like tearing free of gravity, not because the depth resisted, but because my own perception had begun to acclimate to its pressure, and returning to the shallow, screaming chaos of the navigable warp felt like emerging from deep water into a windstorm. The contrast was physically painful. I gasped aloud, and the nearest choir member turned toward me with a frown of concern that I waved away with a gesture I hoped appeared controlled. My hands were shaking again. This time the tremor did not stop when I pressed them against my thighs. It migrated into my forearms, then my shoulders, then settled into a low, persistent vibration in the muscles of my jaw that made my teeth click together at irregular intervals. A physical response to psychic contact that exceeded my body's designed tolerance. I completed the monitoring cycle. I filed the report. Surface readings only. No anomaly. In my quarters afterward, I sat on the edge of my cot and stared at the bare metal wall and tried to reconcile what I had perceived with the doctrinal framework that had given my life its shape and purpose. The warp was chaos. The warp was a reflection of mortal emotion. The warp's dangers were reflections of humanity's sins, and they could be combated through purity, faith, and the Emperor's divine will. The deep warp was none of these things. It was not chaos. It was structured beyond any architecture the Imperium had ever conceived. It was not a reflection of anything human, because it had existed before humanity and would exist after humanity with the same incomprehensible patience it displayed now. It was not dangerous in any way the Imperium's defenses were designed to address, because it was not hostile. Hostility requires engagement. The deep warp was disengaged from everything above it with a completeness that rendered the concept of threat irrelevant. The ruinous powers, the four great enemies of mankind, the cosmic horrors that had consumed civilizations and damned worlds and driven entire species to extinction over millennia of supernatural war, were surface phenomena. They were the froth. They raged and devoured and corrupted, and beneath them the deep warp continued as it always had, unchanged, unmoved, uncaring. The daemons I had spent 11 years monitoring, measuring, and defending against were not the deepest horror of the immaterium. They were the shallowest. The tremor in my jaw persisted for 3 days. On the second day, I noticed that the choir's monitoring instruments had registered a subtle alteration in my psychic signature, a shift in the baseline frequency that identified my individual resonance within the collective lattice. The change was minor, within acceptable variance parameters, but I noted it with clinical detachment because I understood its cause. Extended contact with the deep warp had altered the way my psychic faculties interfaced with the immaterium. The shift was like the difference between an eye that has only seen daylight and an eye that has perceived total darkness. The pupil does not fully contract again. I could not revert to prior perceptual limitations. The depth was now a permanent feature of my awareness, a pressure I could sense at the periphery of every monitoring cycle, every litany, every moment of psychic engagement. It was like knowing that the floor beneath my feet was not solid ground, but a platform suspended over an abyss. The platform held. My duties continued, but the knowledge of what waited below changed the meaning of every step. On the 336th day, Astropath Tertia Maran Solke, a junior member of the choir who had served aboard the Penance for 2 years, attempted an unauthorized descent. I do not know how she knew. I do not know if she sensed the alteration in my psychic signature and traced its cause, or if she had independently perceived the depth during the warp assault and drawn her own conclusions, or if some other factor had led her to attempt what she attempted. I knew her only as a competent, quiet young woman with the particular rigidity of bearing that characterized psychers who had been soul-bound late and bore the scars of that tardiness in their posture. She performed the descent during an unsupervised calibration session, using a secondary focus lens that she had adjusted without my knowledge. The choir's monitoring instruments registered her psychic signature dropping below sanctioned depth at 14 minutes past the 4th hour, and by the time I reached the choir chamber, she was seated at her station with her hands resting on her resonance plate, and her eyes open and her mouth slightly parted, and her psychic presence gone. She was breathing. Her pulse was steady. Her pupils responded to light. Every physiological indicator suggested a healthy, functioning human being. But when I extended my perception toward her, I found nothing. Not the blank absence of a null or the distorted void of a pariah. Something worse. An empty vessel. The space where her psychic resonance should have existed, the fundamental harmonic that identified her as a sentient being with a soul, contained only silence. The medical adepts examined her. They found no corruption, no warp taint, no demonic signature, no neurological damage, no evidence of psychic predation as the Imperium understood the term. Her body functioned. Her mind processed sensory input and generated appropriate motor responses. She could walk when directed. She could eat when fed. She could sit when placed in a chair. She could not pray. She could not project. She could not perceive. She could not be perceived. She was a body with the absolute minimum of animating force required to sustain biological function, and nothing more. I sat with her in the isolation ward while the medical adepts completed their assessment. She stared at the wall across from her cot with an expression that was not vacant. Vacancy implies a space that was once filled, but rather settled, as though she had arrived at a condition that required no further adjustment. She spoke once. Her voice was flat, uninflected, stripped of the subtle psychic harmonics that colored every word a psyker uttered. She said, "It does not hate us." I asked her what she meant. She did not respond. She did not speak again. I ordered her sedated and confined to the isolation ward under medical supervision. I filed the incident report using the standardized classification for warp predation anomaly, which was the closest available category to what had actually occurred, and had the significant advantage of not requiring me to describe what I believed had actually happened. What I believed was this: she had descended to the depth, and the depth had not attacked her mind. It had not burned her. It had not corrupted her. It had simply made her irrelevant. Her psychic resonance, the substance of her soul's interaction with the immaterium, had encountered a stratum where that resonance held no significance, and it had dissipated, not consumed. Not suppressed, rendered meaningless. Like a voice speaking into a vacuum, not silenced by force, but erased by the absence of a medium through which sound could travel. The deep warp did not destroy what entered it. It contextualized it into insignificance. I did not sleep that night. My quarters felt smaller than they were, the ceiling lower, the walls closer, and I understood this was not physical but perceptual, the consequence of knowing that the material dimensions I inhabited were themselves a surface phenomenon resting atop something vastly, incomprehensibly deeper. The migraine that had begun during my own descent had not abated. It lived behind my eyes like a second pulse, and my hands maintained their tremor at a frequency too subtle to see but persistent enough to feel when I pressed my fingertips together. In the days following Marin Solke's hollowing, the choir's cohesion deteriorated, not dramatically, not in ways that would trigger formal intervention, but I could feel it in the lattice during monitoring cycles, a subtle disharmony that tasted like tarnished silver. The other choir members had not been told the details of Solke's condition, but they knew she was gone, and they knew the official classification did not satisfy. Psychers are sensitive to unspoken tension. It colors the air like humidity. I could have addressed it. A choir savant's duties include maintaining the choir's psychological stability during extended translations. I could have convened a doctrinal reassurance session, brought in the ship's confessor, reinforced the catechism that explained warp predation as the enemy's impotent grasping against the Emperor's faithful. I chose not to, because every word of that catechism now rang hollow in my own perception, and I did not trust myself to recite comfort I no longer believed. Instead, I increased the monitoring cycle frequency and filed the requisite paperwork justifying the change as a precautionary response to the predation event.
I slapped the mic, but the mosquito escaped.
It was, I found, a remarkably effective replacement. The choir responded to increased structure the way soldiers respond to drill when morale falters, drawing stability from action rather than belief. Attaché Darvo began appearing at my briefings. He did not announce himself. He did not request attendance. He simply materialized at the rear of the operations center during the morning signal integrity review, his gray coat blending with the metal walls, his expression one of polite attention. The first time, I assumed it was related to Solk's incident. The second time, I realized it was broader than that. He was reading my reports. Not the formal entries in the ship's archive. Those were filtered through 3 doctrinal review layers and contained nothing that would attract attention. He was reading the raw data streams from the choir's monitoring instruments, the unprocessed numbers that preceded my interpretive summaries. He was looking at the gap between what the instruments recorded and what my reports described. The gap was small, but it existed because I had been unconsciously modulating my reports to exclude readings that originated from perception depths I had not officially been operating at. The raw data showed fluctuations that my summaries did not account for, minor discrepancies that an average auditor would dismiss as calibration drift, but that an inquisitorial analyst would recognize as evidence of unauthorized operational parameters. Surveillance replaced routine. I began noticing things. Data slates on my desk read meters. My personal logs access.
क्या हो रहा? 50 का नोट देखना पड़ेगा. आंटी मांग रही है क्या? हाँ, उससे एक बार सुबह के टाइम मैंने पूछी थी, बोले बाद में लेंगे. कितना भी चलेगा. 2020 नहीं, यही दे दो.
Timestamps showing entries at hours I had been asleep. The medical adept assigned to my quarterly physiological review spending 40 minutes on a procedure that normally took 15, with particular attention to the neurological response matrices that would reveal sustained deep warp contact. I altered my report phrasing. I excised any terminology that could be construed as referencing subsurface phenomena. I replaced depth with density. I replaced beneath with peripheral. I replaced stillness with interference null zone. The language of concealment became a second fluency, practiced with the same precision I applied to the litany of sanctioned perception. I was codifying self-censorship into professional habit, and I understood that this was exactly what the system required. Not truth, not accuracy, compliance.
Hey, welcome back.
Imperium did not need its
Welcome
instruments
back,
to perceive
Rika.
reality. It needed them to perceive doctrine. The warp surged again on the 341st day, smaller than the first assault. Fire shifted to combat configuration with practiced efficiency, and I took my position at the focus array and extended perception to combat depth.
I think the issue you were talking about earlier means you are too reliant on onion skin. Reliant on onion skin? What do you mean by that? Like, it's like saying onion skin is an option rather than a necessary tool in order to make your in-betweens. Is that the case? Is it actually optional thing or not? It means you use it too much. Well, does that mean I'm not supposed to use that much? For example, in this, you can see like how messed up it looks. I want to make an in-between between the previous frame and the next frame, and for that, this tool is helpful, right? Like I even made my settings according to the comfort I seek. Like my previous frame is like blue colored, and the next frame is like green colored. Even though like other animators use like different colors for that, for me this was suitable. Onion skinning usually just helps with placement or scaling. Am I doing placement or scaling? I don't know, man. I simply wanna make an in between, and Am I doing it the right way though? Or am I just simply wasting time? What do you think about it? I need your suggestions. You don't worry, you're jumping to a conclusion too quickly. Don't worry, you're worrying too much. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can, I think, guess by the words that I've been using, right? Like, I've been like practicing animations, and I have done so many mistakes, man. Like, it could have saved so much time. See this, like, this frame over here. It's like between this frame and this frame, as in like this took me like more than an hour to make this, and yeah, realizing the amount of time I make, I get a little bit anxious on like the speed at which I do this kind of stuff. It makes me like is it how it's supposed to be? Is there any faster way possible for me to do it, or am I just wasting time by my using my own method to draw this? That's how it is, man. Like yeah, it's still a learning experience for me, so even if I'm going on, like, even if it takes time, you just do it. Whatever time's wasted is wasted, it's gone. But progress must be logged and moved on with. That's it. That's how I'm like working upon it right now. I'm just saying that it is okay to sometimes not use onion skinning to check your drawings themselves and avoid stiffness. I was just giving a pointer is all. Oh, okay. So like I don't know. Every animation tutorial that I've watched till now have used like onion skin in some way or the other. So since then, I've also been like continuously using onion skin for literally everything, and there has never been like a time where I never felt the need to not use onion skin. That's how it is for me though. But yeah, I guess it's a something of experience, I suppose. Maybe with time I hopefully do not require usage of onion skin as much as I do right now. So yeah, let's see how it goes. I'm not saying not to use it, RK. You didn't read what I said. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, it's not like I will not use it. It's just like, yeah, it's just noted. Yeah, I noted what you wrote. So I'll follow your advice with discretion. That's it. That's it. You're overthinking what I'm saying and coming to conclusions. Yeah, that's what's happening right now. I tend to overthink many things. That's how it is. Unfortunately. But hey, let's chill a bit and just simply draw, right? Like, let's not think too much. And let's just proceed with our animation over here. That's it. Simple as that, right? Wait, why is that? Wait, did I not? Wait, is it the rough? Yeah, it is the rough sketch. Okay. Okay, now I feel like I'm getting a breathing space for drawing my in between. That clutter was also because of the rough sketch I drew, and it was also like a bit translucent, so it looked like way too cluttered. But now I think I'm able to like comprehend a little bit better than before. Man, the small things. Since I didn't even explain what I was saying, I overthink as well. It is okay. Well, I tried to give you a pointer, but I don't think you understood, so I will move on. Oh man, it's only getting worse, right? I'm sorry the for this case. Yeah, I mean, wait, what? Okay. Yeah, let's just move on. Yeah, that's it. Like, I think it's better to move on from this. Okay, so this is what I'm supposed to draw in here. What will she do after this, though? I never even thought about it. It's okay, don't worry about it. Yay. I'm not worrying anymore now. Let's go. Okay, so she turns her head, I mean, wakes up from her sleep, and next it's my plan was that like the next part is gonna be like how will I even show it? Like, wait, let me show. You know, have you seen that scene from Danganronpa? If you've ever heard about it, like wait, it's like there is a girl, and behind her there is like a big block of some machinery who is gonna smash her to a pulp. Slowly but surely, it's like approaching her from behind, and yeah, that's the meme or meme template. I wanted to make or animate that same thing over here. So I don't know how it will transition to that scene. Let me see. Where's that? Kyoto Kigiri. Oh yeah, Thick of It. Wait, why is it named Thick of It, bro? Oh, by the way, Rika, have you ever VC'd after your debut? It's been a long time since I saw you in any VC. Wait, why is it? Procrastinators realizing that the day they've been putting off is finally arriving. Bro. Wait, was it this one though? Wait, did it try to play that Thomas the Tank Engine theme music? Wait, what? I haven't been only visiting animation servers I am in. Since no one comes to my working server unless I'm there. Oh, I see how it is. You know what? I think I should be hanging out in your server. Like whenever like I'm drawing something or like animating something, maybe Wait, isn't that won't be like an appropriate time? Oh, you know what? It's completely fine. Yeah. I'll just simply hop onto VC and like do my stuff. Yeah, I'll be doing that. Let's go. Oh, I think the tavern server does not have any VC at the moment, right? Yeah, I mean, CAW is still there, so a good place to jump into VC. Just everyone gets scared for some reason. People are free to join. Everyone gets scared for some reason. Wait, why? Why do you feel like people are scared of you though? I mean, whenever I saw you in VC, I was like, let's go. She's in VC doing some stuff. I get to see what work she's working on, and hopefully get to learn whatever she's working on. That's how I feel. They will. Wait, wait. What happened to my? Why did it disconnect? Wait, what? Why did that happen, bro? Wait, is there something else downloading? No, there's nothing else going on. I have no idea what happened right now, but hopefully everything's right and fine now. Stream closed. Yeah, I just saw that. Like, I was simply disconnected out of nowhere, and now I'm like back in here. Well, I have no idea what happened, but now everything's fine. Let's go. So yeah, like I was talking like why would they say that? Like they will usually not join. Like why scared though? I don't understand. Why would they be scared of the sagacious Rika? Man, but it's completely fine. I mean, I think like most people are busy with their stuff, or yeah, scared people. I think people who are scared would comprise of like 15 to 20% of the entire population of people in server. I suppose I think that would be like a minority, but it makes me sad. Oh man, you don't have to worry about it. I mean, you know what? I'll be definitely joining whenever like I'll be working on drawing or stuff, you know. And but the thing is, I think it's gonna be like odd times for me. I don't know if I were to join right now. I think you would be there, right? But as you can see, usually this is my stream time. Usually I'm streaming at this time. As for the others time, yeah, I have like work during those times, and the free time that I have, I think you guys are like asleep because of the difference in the time zones. So inconvenience. I'm more of staying. Don't mean actually scared. I am more of saying people overthink or don't like to join on their own. It makes me sad. I don't like to always the first one. That's okay. I know people get busy. Yeah, like I think it's also like the beginning of a new phase. So currently you don't have a lot of people, like it's your recent debut, right? So yeah, it's gonna take some time for more people to know you and join your server and hang out together. So yeah, don't get discouraged by this. Sooner or later, people will definitely be there for that. That reminds me, what is happening over here? Okay, he is like he is also like animating random stuff. I see. That's I. Okay. Oh shoot! I forgot. Wait, is he still streaming or did he? Oh yeah, he ended his stream. Okay. Sasuku is offline at the moment. I forgot to drop by, bro. Today he ain't playing Minecraft or something. What? Oh yeah, he isn't playing now. He's just in the PC making animations on his own too. But okay, yeah, it's like very late night for him in his place. So what about him? Where is he though? A chance animation. Bro, really? Yeah, okay, he also ended his stream like a few hours ago. You know what? I think you should also be doing some collab with these people I know. Maybe you also know because, animation community thingy. But yeah, collaborations would be like a really good thing for you to do. Like people will get to know you more, join your server, hang out together. Yeah, that's like one way to like have a lot of new people for your community in a short span of time. By collaborating with other streamers, animators, artists and all. I think that would be a really good idea. But still, I think it's a good idea to like take it slow. Like, let's see for a month how everything goes by. No need for rush. Okay, so this line. Okay, this thing overlaps it by a lot. So it's gonna be like, yeah, like this. I'll be doing collabs, but most of my artist friends have told me they don't want to collab, so I will do what I can. Or I guess it's time to get to know more people. I can give you a few suggestions. Like I know like one or two other animators that I'm in good touch with. I can like have a little talk with them if possible, and for a collaboration. I mean, they haven't collabed either in a very long time. Wait, one of them didn't even collab ever. I wonder what his reaction's gonna be, but yeah, like I can do some talking around and help you with that, so let me know about it. Thank you for the encouragement. Yay. Just doing my best in order to help my mentor. That's one of the many small things that I can do for you. Other than that, I see I don't have enough time left. When will I be doing that though? I need to take some time out of it. Oh shoot, it's completely. Man, why is my brain so mushy right now? Brain fog, that's what they call it, right? Okay, so that thing goes down like this. It's in the 1/3, so the placement of this line will also be 1/3 between, like something like this. Man, this vector line correction thing is such a useful tool. Like, look at this. Oh yeah, I can just position my line correctly if I do them wrong. I think that's one of the many pros of animating on Clip Studio Paint. That's why I like it. Let me push from here and one from here. I hope you're okay. I hope I'm okay. I mean, in general way, yes, I am definitely okay. I am doing good enough. Although, man, yeah, okay, no venting. Do not vent on internet, bro. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. It is helpful with cleanup. Yep, exactly. Man, I think it's also like one of the many reasons that I consume a lot of time, because you know what? I think it's the best thing to do is like if you're not able to make a proper line, then just simply practice on it. I am continuously making bad lines and trying to correct it using the correction line tool, which is in turn worsening my line drawing skills, I would say, because yeah, I mean, I am supposed to like perfect my artistic skill in such a way like I draw a perfect line in just simple one stroke, right? But instead I am simply like using tools in order to correct my already incorrect lines. So I don't know if it's like a good thing or bad thing, but I think I should be working on that too. You know what? In animations, I think it is permissible for me to do that, because animation is something that I've realized man, it feels like doing a marathon. Yeah, that's what it felt like for me. I am very like I think I have developed a passion for learning and working on animations, but the journey, man, it's, I would say, excruciating, man. It's extremely excruciating process. That's one thing that I've realized, man. It is not for the, it is like a test of patience and endurance, in my opinion. What do you think about it, though? Sending hugs. Oh, Huggish. Thank you for the Huggish. You are still starting out. That is okay. You're jumping in without much preparation. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I never knew what to prepare about. I just simply jumped into the rabbit hole. That's it. So it'll be stressful. Yeah. And I realized it during that time. But at least I am starting out on something, right? So that's a good thing, in my opinion. You must start at something, at the very least. Okay, this line's gonna go like this, somewhere in between. And I'm again using line correction tool for this, but it's fine. While drawing illustrations, I don't use this kind of tools. I am like, I need to draw a perfect line art. No undo, no matter how many undos it takes, you must never use a line correction tool. Lol. So while drawing normal illustrations, I don't use those tools. But in animations, it's like a little bit time saving for me. Yeah, that's how it has been for me. Okay, so you know what, let's erase this because it's gonna go behind on the next frame. Yeah, that's how it's gonna be. Something like this. It's getting overlapped a little bit. It's gonna get overlapped like this, I suppose. Yeah, that makes sense. Since you are also learning drawing at the same time, I think you are trying to balance a lot. Using correction is fine. Use whatever it makes easier for you. Yeah. I mean, I have been seeing a lot of videos regarding tracing, using references, and stuff like that. People, and I've seen comments like half of the people saying it's okay to use those tools, another half saying it's just plain cheating, massive skill issue. And I'm like torn between why those tools even exist and when I'm supposed to even use those tools. If I use them, will I really be recognized as an actual artist? Does it help me with skilling up, or is it making me a lazy artist? That's how it's been. Okay, so this line goes something like this. It's a good thing to ask around and ask professionals. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. So like having like a personal talk with them and like knowing what kind of things, techniques, tools they use to work on their own. And yeah, I have like come to know a lot about that. Wait, that line goes like this. I see. Middle line's gonna go like this. Wait, what is that? This is the right side. Okay. Videos will only say so much. Yeah, exactly. I think I should decide it myself on when to use and not use those tools or techniques. What really matters is the end result. 1 minute. Okay. When I started, I only drew on paper since digital art wasn't really popular, so I would use techniques to help me draw better. So I think using tools is fine. You're still drawing and learning. Just do whatever you want. Yep, exactly. These tools exist for a reason, right? So best to use them to your advantage. Simple as that. Exactly. That's what I should be doing. What is this? Art chat. Oh, that reminds me. I don't know if I'll be able to show you my traditional drawings. It's like more than a decade years old, man. I think I can show you that. Let me see. I have them posted in my Instagram, in my personal account. What the hell? Bro. These are also some of the drawings that I did traditionally. Yeah, I used to draw more than this, but I have like only few photos that's posted over here. I don't even know why. Awesome drawing, you need to post some more this year. Oh my gosh, this cosplayer even commented on my post like lol. Man, she has 1 million followers and she commented on this one drawing out of nowhere. Like I only have 20 likes and one comment, and this one comment is from this one cosplayer who is like 1 million followers. Like what? Now that I see. Wait. Is she a cosplayer or those kind of fashion model? What the hell? Oh yeah, she does cosplay too, but okay, I guess she is an aero cosplayer. Yeah. All this. Wait, now that I realize, those are not bad pose. Those are some poses that I can use as references. Okay. Okay, I got I think I've realized that this cosplayer over here might be a good place to find for reference images and poses. Okay, nice. Let's go. Oh yeah, shoot. I got distracted. You know, let me post this drawing that I did like more than a decade ago. It's a traditional drawing. So where do I post this? Creators at work. Yeah, personal art. Yeah, that's where I'll be. You can check in personal art of this drawing that I did like 10 years ago. Oh man. Oh yeah. This is also something that I drew before. Man, I had so many more drawings that I did, but Yeah, now they don't exist anymore. They're like traditional, so of course. Oh yeah, Rika, you can check these pics that I've posted in, what is this channel? Personal art channel in your server. I mean, not in this one, creators at work server. I don't know if I should be posting here too. I think I can post in here also. How do I batch? I cannot batch forward them. Maybe there should be like a feature on one image. It feels like it's gonna be a clutter. So yeah, I posted them at like creators at work server. You can check there if you want to. And when you see, you'll realize that what I used to draw before traditionally was charcoal portrait drawing. I used to have like charcoal pencils and use that to draw stuff. Yeah, it shows only like I have posted like only 3 because those were the only pictures available. But I used to draw more. It's just that I have never uploaded them yet, and I have no idea where those drawings are. What the hell? What is 414 weeks ago? Looking nice. Yay. Thank you. Yeah, so man, wished I had more drawings that I could show, but I think one day I should be doing some traditionals. I don't know if I'll be able to stream them though. Editing videos, work focus. Oh my gosh. I can see you in VC now. Damn. Let's go. You know what? Now that I see, I think it's, yeah, it's more than 2 hours of streaming. It's gonna be like 3 hours. So I have work tomorrow and I'll be ending my stream now. Let's go.